Right now, joining us on the phone is Lieutenant Mike Giroux from the Yonkers Fire Rescue. Lieutenant, thank you for taking the time to join us here as we cover what's happening in Lower Manhattan at this collapsed parking garage. Take us inside, please. This is a very delicate rescue. We still do not know if there are people that remain inside that collapsed garage. How do you begin to tackle this challenge?
Yeah, this is definitely a multifaceted incident that they have going on here. There's so many things that are happening, just the stabilization of the building, the victims, and, even just the utilities. Somebody's got to shut off all the utilities to try to make it safer for the firefighters to try to get in there. In addition to that, they have to really try to locate or find out how many victims were in there when it collapsed. And I think that's going to be the hardest part.
And Lieutenant, you would expect, Christine was starting to get at the question there, would there be evacuations? I mean, we've got Pace University apparently directly across one of the streets or across the way here. You've got all kinds of businesses. It's the Wall Street area. There's even residential. It's a, it's a densely packed Lower Manhattan neighborhood. What is your assessment of that, of the situation there?
Yeah, I would definitely think that evacuations would be in place. It's an older building, concrete.
We're told 1925, by the way.
Yeah, so, this thing could definitely come down. From what I understand, it's already starting to show signs of bulging from the front. So, it may just be a matter of time before it comes down. So evacuations, I would say, would definitely be going on.
We were told that members of the FDNY that arrived on scene were told to evacuate the building. It's just too dangerous. The stability obviously in question. So could you please describe the tools that they locate these victims? Or, I mean, do they just go by, eyewitness, talking to other employees to see who's accounted for? If you're not allowed to get on the inside, how do you find the victims that are trapped from the outside?
Applies tools to do that. There's a bunch of different things. There's a snake camera that you can deploy, which is on a pole that can be extended and actually give you a picture of the hole inside. There's also, we have the thermal imaging cameras, which are also a great tool where you don't necessarily have to go inside the building. You can go to the opening and you can scan, and it will pick up the heat signature. And those are some of the tools that you would definitely use if, hey, listen, you can't get inside. But again, it all depends on how the collapse or what type of collapse they have with those floors on what they're going to be able to see. Because obviously those cameras, thermal imaging, can't see through concrete and things of that nature. So if you have, let's say, a lean-to collapse, they may not be able to see it in the position that they're located. So the tower ladder, you may have to go from the other side in order to use those to actually get a good visualization of, hey, what's happening inside here.
And Lieutenant, we're learning that at least 3 people are in fact injured. It's unclear the level of injury, the status of their injuries or their conditions. As you can tell, the exterior of the structure is still standing. It was that interior collapse that sort of imploded, went inward, if you will. There are canines on the scene ready to help in any way possible. What does it tell you, if anything, that this collapsed inward and the exterior appears to still be standing, although, as we pointed out, is still buckling?
Yeah, well, it could be a number of different types of collapses. It could be a V collapse. It could be a lean-to collapse. But it just tells me that, hey, whatever it was is still leaning on that wall because it does buckle a little bit. And on the inside, you can't really send anybody on the inside because it's an unsecured building. It's not stable.
And there you see the firefighters in the ladder and bucket right there away from the building, not even trying to get into it. No chance.
Right, and what they're doing is they're trying to get a real good size up on, hey, what's happening? There's other devices they can do, and I'm sure, listen, FDNY does this a lot. They have the resources, they have the technology, they have the manpower to handle situations like this. I'm sure they already put transits on the building to see if how much it's moving and is it still moving. I'm sure you can put other devices that we have that go directly on the building, whereas if it picks up a vibration or moves, it'll alarm. So I'm sure they have all that in place, and I'm sure the evacuations are already done. They probably already killed all the utilities, the water, the gas, the electric. So, I think they know what they're doing.
Lieutenant, stand by 1 minute because I do want to address this new information that we're getting via a tweet that was posted by Pace University, an accredited account, I should mention here, that they're advising that all classes at the New York City campus, 33 Beekman and 161 William, have been canceled, and also the buildings have been evacuated, and also accommodations now being made for our residential students, which clearly means that there were some students living in this area and that will need to seek immediate alternate accommodations while this situation unfolds here this afternoon. But I just did want to mention that to those folks that may be watching that either attend Pace University or have a family member that attends Pace University. Getting back to the rescue and the operations that's taking place here, Lieutenant, how much of a concern are the adjoining buildings right now for those that are there? I mean, when one building does go down, does that immediately then affect the stability of the buildings that are connected to it?
If it's connected, possibly. I mean, again, it depends on the construction, how they were constructed. There's a lot of factors that play into that. That definitely everybody is evacuated in that area, so that's good. And until a good indication on the stability of this building, we really won't know what's going to happen. Just my guess is if your front wall, if the front of the building is bulging a bit, I would think that's going to fall out. That's just common sense. That's going to fall out towards the street. The other parts of the wall, it's up for grabs. I don't know.
I realize, different areas have different guidelines and rules when it comes to inspections, but just as a general rule, given you're in Yonkers and we're talking about a building in New York City, I did want to get an idea that ask you, how often are these types of buildings, particularly parking garages, how often are they inspected in regards to, in regards to city law or county law?
Yeah, well, I know I can only speak for Yonkers because that's where I work, but I know in Yonkers we have a daily building inspection. Every company has to go out daily on building inspections, and they run different buildings all the time that they'll inspect. I know we've had some new buildings that went up that had parking garages similar to this. Again, they're brand new, so they're not 1920 parking garages. But I'll bring my guys down in there, and they do have racks for the cars. And we'll go in there and we'll look and say, hey, listen, if somebody's stuck under here, what are we going to do? So we do go on building inspections and we look at this stuff. But, when you're talking about a collapse like this, you just can't predict something like this.
Why do you say that? Like, you don't think that there were signs of wear and tear?
It's just so hard unless you're a structural engineer and you know exactly how it was built, where everything was. It's just, you can't really predict something like this. It's a collapse. They're just so hard to predict. Like, you just couldn't do that.
Okay, well, Lieutenant Mike Giroux of the Yonkers Fire Rescue, we thank you for the insight as we watch here in Lower Manhattan at 57 Ann Street. A parking garage has collapsed. At least 3 people have been injured. The extent of their injuries unclear at this point. As you can see on the left there, all kinds of streets are blocked off. That is William and Ann near Fulton, the financial district, home to Pace University, which is shut down for the day. Other businesses have evacuated. Residential buildings, we believe, are evacuated as well. Not confirmed, but probably, given the severity of the situation. FDNY, NYPD, and others on the scene, Department of Buildings as well.